Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being with us here today. We shall end day 6 of the Kala Ghoda Festival's literature section with a discussion titled Censored Freedom, where we have Samira Iyengar and Vishwajyoti Ghosh, along with Chintan Girish Modi as moderator, talking about curtailment in the arts and where the line must be drawn when it comes to censorship. I shall now quickly introduce our panelists. Samira Iyengar is the co-founder of Junoon, an organization that aims to make theatre and the arts an integral part of our everyday lives. At Junoon, she plays a key role in conceptualizing and developing programs. Prior to Junoon, she was director of projects at Prithvi Theatre for close to a decade. Samira has also worked with the Seagull Theatre Quarterly and was a founding member of the India Theatre Forum. She has co-edited Our Stage, The Pleasures and Perils of Theatre Practice in India Today, published in 2009. Our next panelist, Vishwajyoti Ghosh, is a Delhi-based graphic novelist and cartoonist. He is the author of the graphic novel Delhi Calm, where he brings together realistic comic passages with political commentaries and fantastical elements of the Indian emergency. His most recent publication was the group project he curated, This Side, That Side, Restoring Partition, an anthology of graphic narratives by 48 illustrators and authors from South Asia. He is one of the principal designers of the Inverted Commas Initiative, a collective specializing in social communications using comics and graphic narratives. Chintan Girish Modi, who will be moderating the session, is a Bombay-based freelance writer. He writes on art, cinema, and popular culture for The Hindu and a weekly humor column called Mumbai Diary for the Friday Times. He has worked on research projects with the Re-Institute of South Asian Research and Exchange in Kathmandu and on editorial projects with Orient Black Swan, Oxford University Press, and the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He has also received fellowships from Initiatives of Change, the Seagull Foundation for the Arts, and Prava, among other organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Khorshid. Thank you, Kala Ghoda Festival, for inviting us and for putting together this panel with these two exciting panelists. One from Mumbai and with experience in Kolkata and other places, and one who's based in Delhi but has worked elsewhere. So instead of starting with some question, we'd like to begin with poetry, and Samira has something to share with us.
Oh, that was smart. Actually, we were talking earlier about when we got the topic of censoring freedom. One of the conversations we were having over email was the nature of freedom, and it seems to me, at least, and I think perhaps you guys agree, that we sort of assume what is meant by freedom. And in Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, he actually does a really nice exposition on what freedom is, on freedom, which I would just like to read a little bit out of. He begins by saying, "And an orator said, 'Speak to us of freedom.' And he answered, 'At the city gate and by your fireside, I have seen you prostrate yourself and worship your own freedom. Even as slaves humble themselves before a tyrant and praise him, though he slays them.'" It goes on, there are a few more paragraphs, and then he goes on to say, "And what is it but fragments of your own self you would discard that you may become free? If it is an unjust law you would abolish, that law was written with your own hand upon your own forehead. You cannot erase it by burning your law books, nor by washing the foreheads of your judges, though you pour the sea upon them. And if it is a despot you would dethrone, see first that his throne erected within you is destroyed. For how can a tyrant rule the free and the proud, but for a tyranny in their own freedom and a shame in their own pride? And if it is a care you would cast off, that care has been chosen by you rather than imposed upon you. And if it is a fear you would dispel, the seat of that fear is in your heart and not in the hand of the feared." And he goes on. And part of the reason I really liked this piece is because it actually asks you to take responsibility for what you understand freedom to be. And it tells you that you are complicit in the freedom that you reach for and that you demand.
Thanks. So Samira, I find it really interesting that you're on this panel because I remember 2 years ago there was this play on Jinnah that Kala Ghoda had invited, and because they'd received threats from some Hindu right-wing organizations, they'd asked the play, they'd cancelled the play, and you wrote something around that time talking about why it's important to host pieces and performances that may be different from what we imagine as the truth, or something to that effect, where you said that you may not agree with something, but you can still make space for it. And I would like you to talk about, as a as a curator, as someone who works with different kinds of creative practitioners and provides a platform for different things to happen in various parts of the city. What is how do you really respond when there seems to be an environment? I won't say just now, maybe now, and as people argue that it's been there before as well, and it is there in other places as well. Do you feel like you operate out of some sense of fear? Is there some voice in you that says, Samira, try to stay off this? What if Junoon shuts if you do this performance? Or what if this messes up with your relationship with performance venues?
So, yes. We are unfortunately in times, and I don't think it's the time today. I think it has built up to this time. I think we've been moving towards these times, and we've taken, in some sense, our freedom. As a digression, I remember when I was at University of Chicago, and I had Pakistani friends there. And of course, as an Indian, you go to USA and make Pakistani friends, right? Because
You can't make them here.
but yeah. So I mean, you can sometimes, but rarely, right?
With Facebook and Twitter, yes.
And now there was no Facebook then.
Yeah.
I remember they said that you guys in India have no idea how lucky you are, because when you speak, I hear you guys speak and you just say what you think. And I'm talking about 1997, 1998, so some time ago. And you say what you think. And he said in Pakistan we always think who's going to be there, and we don't really know if we are. And I was talking to people who are very rich and very privileged in Pakistan, and I think I'm grateful for that comment, because it suddenly made me aware of, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't like this everywhere. And somewhere I think that in India we really do take our freedom for granted, and I think we have allowed things to come to a pass like it is today, where we are second guessing ourselves. And it has been, starting Junoon, I think there are two things that I've become very conscious of. One is what is more important? The freedom we demand of a democratic state, right? Or my running an organization. I hope I will be able to stand for the freedom. I don't know. The second thing I've also become aware of is that there are many ways of standing up, and you have to be smart and you have to be strategic. It's if a power is, I mean, I guess we should know this from our independence struggle, right? If the power is mightier than you in a certain space, then what are the weapons or what are the strategies that you use to stand up to that power? Because finally your objective is to make sure you protect that freedom, or protect the right to discuss certain things, or the right to discourse or debate or argue, but to express, right? And it's something I think it's just a reality we have to live with in Junoon. I think I can safely say that for both Sanjana and me, and for the Junoon team, it's an important thing to stand by, because I don't understand. I think we would be false in working for the arts if we did not work for freedom of expression.
Okay, so Vishwajyoti, how would you respond to, I mean, you can respond to either what she said or to the poem, but I would also like you to think a bit about what's happened specifically with practitioners who connected to the form that you use, which is of the graphic novel and the cartoon. I mean, we've recently heard about Arijit Singh's work being censored not by the state but by Facebook, but rather by fellow users of Facebook who found his work to be offensive because it contains nudity. And also, we heard of this Kashmiri artist this morning whose work was pulled down by Facebook, Ali, right?
We used to
Yeah. So that, and yeah, maybe you
Yeah,
want to
so
talk
I
about that.
primarily don't agree with the thesis of this session, which is censorship of freedom. I think we are moving very progressively towards freedom of censorship. It's just so easy to censor, and everyone is a censor. So I don't like a picture, I don't like a drawing on Facebook, I can report. And there's a Facebook or there's a social media to actually look at to my thing and actually redress my grievances and take it off without asking me. It's just so simple. I don't like this tag on Facebook. It's that simple click. So we are progressively the idea is being more democratized, where the whole idea of censorship is moving from the instrument of the state to an instrument of the individual, where viewing is an individual event, but expressing is becomes a collective one. So it's not only one person who's reporting it. There are 10 other people or 20 other, or 1,000 other people, but there are 850 likes to it. But that doesn't really count, right? So the interesting part is that who is now a partner in this whole game? So whether it's the viewer who's also a censor, or whether it's like people who are actually standing up for it. So for me, the whole journey is now in a point of transition. And it's in a point of transition irrespective of any political association or affiliation we might like to credit it to. I mean, if censorship happened in 75, it wasn't because of the one party which is there in power now. It happened because of the party which actually supported censorship. I mean, the Prime Minister of that day said there can be no press freedom without censorship. Right? So, it's a well-entrenched system within the state mechanism. When India won the test against West Indies in Port of Spain, the commentator was asked in 75 to say this has happened because of the 20-point program the Prime Minister has led. Now, Gavaskar did not score a century because there was a 20-point program, but it was a part of the state system, and that state system has somehow got entrenched into our own systems. My classic example that I keep thinking about is this person called Rahul Navrekar who comes from this city. Rahul Navrekar was the spokesperson of Shiv Sena, and now he's become the spokesperson of NCP. When he was justifying the vandalism of Shiv Sena, he was saying this as a protest was actually a expression of the people's sentiment, and now he's actually talking against it. So for me, where do you draw the line is a very curious point at this point of time in my journey as to where is my thing coming from? How is that line being redefined or defined? And for me, what is really missing out is the scope of dialogue. And that is the biggest loss in the whole creative process, or even even in the political discourse, I think.
So this lack of dialogue, I mean, I would like you to talk a little bit about that. I've had a feeling in the last few months that there tends to be a lack of nuance in the dialogue that happen because media debates tend to structure it as, you know, this versus that, because we usually see dialogues happen not maybe like literature festivals where people have 1 hour to talk.
Let's not, you know, I mean, let's push it towards this thing of how media debates actually finally bring out the whole thing, because media debates have a certain agenda. They have a TRP agenda, they have a half an hour agenda, they have to pull up the number of tweets that come out at that point of time, they need those eyeballs, so they have an agenda. So they don't really dictate or define what the debate really is, right? In case of Asim Trivedi, the debate was from absolutely the ridiculous to the further ridiculous, you know? I mean, let's not deny the fact that he's a bad cartoonist. But that was not the point. The point was his freedom was taken away. And that was the bigger thing. But the television was debating anything between his drawing skills to, whether he should have been given a more lenient thing. But that was not the point. The point is, television debates tend to have a certain agenda and simplify it. And it's my Bengali conspiracy theory mind that says that often a television thing that comes up and this whole synchronized disruption or this expression of vandalism that happens, it happens with a certain media plan. This is something I've said many times. It usually happens on a Friday or a Thursday. By the time the weekend is gathering up, it becomes a TRP rolling exercise. By Saturday, people are out on the streets vandalizing further, and it comes beautifully together on a Sunday debate. You know, from Monday we have moved on to the next story. So, you know, television comes with a certain media plan. And so does this, you know. I was just talking to someone and they said, okay, there was an exhibition that was going on in Delhi, and the goons came and said, okay, look, we have a problem with this exhibition. So let's do it this way, that you're also there, we are also there. So take off your important works, keep the less important works, and let's do it this way. And that actually happened. And then the people who were putting up the exhibition, they said, "Hum media ko bulaye kya?" Well, हाँ बुला लो, हमको भी footage मिल जाएगा, आपको भी footage मिल जाएगा. You know, I mean, it's actually a true story. So where do we draw the line? How complicit are we? What are we doing as practitioners? What are we doing as expressive? We are often reacting. What in Urdu literature you call Bhakti Adar? You know, we are actually just creating more and more of reactions. We are not really making ourselves really heard that much to create a certain space for a dialogue. If the process of creation and expression was far more greater than the process of bringing it down, it would really lead to some amount of creating a certain platform for dialogue. That's what I think.
Thank you. Samira, do you think there's any or some genuine debate or solidarity with other people's freedoms being taken away, or do you think people usually think about their own? That's one. And the other thing that I'd like to hear from you on is also this whole idea of manufactured debates that Vishwajyoti brought up. What's your take on that? Like, have you got a call from any of these TV channels and told, oh, you're getting paid 25,000 to speak and say these things?
I'm not very good at
Don't
the
fall
short
for that.
phrase.
You never get paid 25,000.
Thank you. And also, I think you have to be very good at the short quips, which I'm not good at. Okay. So, nahi aayega wo call. Your first question was?
I forget now.
Okay.
As you don't
So I'll talk about the second question. Sorry?
Other people's freedom.
Yeah, so do you think that people, because of the fear that's around, are usually concerned with their own freedom, or does it extend to, maybe groups or collectives thinking of how to protect artists' freedoms at large?
See, I'll tell you, I also think that there are a number of factors that come together, right? And one is the factor of the market. And let us remember that India has had this market for 3 decades now. It's our generation. It's a new concept to have so much cash, right? And I think we are a nation caught up in trying to get more and more and more of that cash as much as we can. And, ये नया चीज़ है. We didn't see that children. अभी मुझे चाहिए, right? So, and going back to my earlier statement, I think we take our freedom for granted. And I think those of us in privilege, by the way, take our freedom for granted. We think it will always be there. We think, hone do na, it doesn't affect us. We don't understand that it does. I mean, that famous poem from the Holocaust, right, which says they came for, and then there was only me, and we don't understand that it affects us. And so, so I think we just say, ye freedom hai, and then we do this kind of stuff. Tera bhi, fayda hai, win-win, this beautiful corporate word, no? It's a win-win situation for us, right? And
I'm not saying it happens all the time, but I'm saying, we have also started accepting that this vandalism is a part of the creative
but
process.
we've also got caught up in that level of making it work and getting, like you're fighting. See, you're also in this strange internet time, right? Where everybody is a star for 2 seconds, right? Everybody, like, you've got 1,000 clicks, 2,000 clicks, 3,000 clicks, I'm a star for that moment. Then next time you put a post on Facebook, kitna click mila? Ye ho raha hai na log ke man mein. I mean, this is something you're struggling with. And you're in this huge time of transition. And in all of that, you have all this stuff happening. I think they're really confused. I mean, I think we're in a transition, but I think we're really confused. Yeah. And in that confusion, I don't know. I mean, it's lovely that Kala Ghoda had this as a topic, because I don't know where we are taking the time out to step back and say, what does it mean for us? What do we want as a nation? What do we want as people? What do we want? And especially those of us in the arts, what are we standing for as artists?
Or are we even creating a platform for a dialogue?
Yeah. And what does it mean? Or is art just another form of sales and entertainment? Which is also, I mean, with the visual art market, for instance, if you look at what has happened in the visual art market in India in the last decade, Ranjit, I would say, is or two, right? It's gone crazy, right? And I'm cynical like you, but from a slightly different point of view about this, because when you were saying the market, like Friday mein hota hai na, dhanda to wo uska. But for me, like when I was in the US, and I was in college there, and all the Americans I knew were studying Japanese. Suddenly they had to study Japanese, right? But that was also a time of great Japanese business, right? And I was watching them, and I was lucky to be the outsider. And sometimes you get a perspective when you're not part of that framework, right? And I thought, arey, in log Japanese kar rahe, tomorrow when China will open, they will study Chinese. And it happened, right? I think what we don't realize is India, right now they're studying India because we are a market. Tomorrow, when we are not the market, chale jayega na, they'll go to Nairobi or they'll go to wherever else it is. And there's a huge amount of confusion, I think, happening, which is affecting our our clarity and something that we might have had around independence. At least we would have debates, but we would have been standing for freedom because it was so clear at that time that we have to be free, we have to be, and we define freedom in different ways. Somewhere from that journey of 47 to now, in a very short period of time, if you think about it, for me 70, 80 years is not a long, I don't know how you guys think, but in that short period of time, it's almost like we've forgotten. In the history of countries, we're a young country. But I feel like we've forgotten, and therefore
No, I think we've gone back. I mean, there has been definitely an erosion of political will or
Yeah.
a depletion of political will to talk about freedom of expression.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the
And why
cartoonists
that
had a much better
matters.
time in the
Yeah.
70s
Yeah.
than they're having here. And the best thing about any suppression is that it creates a lot of humor, underground black humor. I mean, I was talking to once I was talking to Salima Hashmi from Pakistan, and she said, you know, the best thing about the Zia years that we miss now are the jokes. You know, that underground humor is completely missing, and we have forget underground humor. We have forgotten how to even laugh at ourselves anymore. You know, this whole thing of the cartoon being the you know, the forever victim, the constant victim. One of the reasons, of course, is because it's easier to read a cartoon than a 500-page edit, a word edit. But the fact remains, we have forgotten how to laugh at ourselves. I remember 31st October 1994, that afternoon when Mrs. Gandhi was killed, the evening news also had a cartoon, you know, which was breaking this news that they had a cartoon of a minister opening up a hospital and there was a first aid man behind him. So they had an immediate cartoon even on assassination, and that went, and the paper was accepted, you know. I mean, we have gone down that many number of years, gone back, and now it just takes 10 minutes for the parliament to take away the Ambedkar cartoon from the book without even debating. So it's also this thing of how depleting are we with our own senses of freedom. You know, for the state, it's not a patronizing thing to grant a freedom of expression. It's as much as required for them. But that's not happening. It's a us and them versus situation, which shouldn't have been there, which never was there
And also,
before.
you know, when I was coming to this talk, one of the things that I was thinking about is it's so strange that we live in a country where the state has absolutely no vision for the arts, right? It has no real thought out policy for the arts. So the arts manage
Pretty much
however
on
they
their own.
manage, right? And the artists manage however they manage. But yet when it comes to censorship, everybody becomes very aware of the arts at that point, right? And I think that's something to, I mean, it certainly struck me walking here, and I thought that's actually something to grasp, that why are we, you don't really care about the cartoonists, you don't care about the graphic novelists, usko marna hai to marne do, if they manage to publish, great for them. But when they do publish, when somebody does write, when somebody does paint, then you go after them. And it's such a weird, and at the same time, perhaps for us working in the arts, we should recognize the power of the space. In a sense, the power of the arts is being acknowledged in the violence that is put upon them, because sometimes I wonder if this is one of the responsibilities that falls upon the arts and the artists, is this responsibility to stand for this freedom. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
I'd
and
like
say
to
that,
read
yeah.
out something in response to this. This is from a column Dipanjana Pal wrote in today's edition of The Hindu. She says, this is why establishments tend to handle art with kid gloves. Art sets up a channel of communication between the artist and the viewer that is difficult to monitor or regulate. This is why art is so often the target of censorship. I thought this spoke a bit to what you were saying. In case you want to comment on this, but also, Vishwajyoti, since we were talking about cartoons, what do you think of...
Is there anything else to censor besides arts? You cannot go and censor
No, but the
ISRO
education-
chief
but
because
education is
he's
being censored.
textbooks?
textbooks is part of education system, which is again coming out from. It's again a soft power, right? I mean, is there anything else to censor besides arts? Right. I mean, I don't know.
Journalism.
Yeah, so the journalism is now is playing footsie anyway, right? So I mean, is there anything else? It's a question. It's a question.
Yeah, it's true. So I wanted to, since we were talking about cartoons, I wanted to bring in the role of what we call non-state actors or religious groups and, well, other people who are not the state, but also seem to have a huge impact on, you know, what gets burnt, what gets torn, what gets banned. Since we were talking about cartoons, I thought of this time when this issue with Lokmat, Lokmat published a cartoon which, to go with the story, where they were exploring funding sources for ISIS. And there was this cartoon which showed a piggy bank with different kinds of currency going in. Now, what was written on the piggy bank was something that the ISIS uses as part of their, I don't know if you want to call it marketing, but it says Allah, Prophet, and maybe the person who made it was not aware of maybe that person didn't know Arabic. We don't know about that. But that was on a piggy bank, and the people who took offense were people who thought that how can something which is related to Islam appear in a piggy bank, because the pig is a profane animal. And the editors of Lokmat had to apologize for that. So
So that's the only freedom you have now, the freedom to be offended.
Yeah, the freedom of censorship. Yeah.
So when you work on your own cartoon, or you work on, say, editing a book and bringing together a collection, is there this fear that runs in your mind saying, I know I want to be published, but I don't want my house to be burnt. I don't want my relatives to be harmed.
Different cultures and different places have different vantage points of humor. We must acknowledge that. We are sitting in a city where the two biggest parties are run by two former cartoonists. And they're the biggest ones who lack a sense of humor. Right? At the same time, the fact remains, when I brought out my first book, which was about the emergency, because I wanted to talk about the sense of censorship that happened, and the one that followed or got hardwired into our systems, I started writing this book by saying that none of this ever happened. This is a work of fiction, self-censored. Where I completely acknowledged with the fact that there's a whole role of self-censorship that happens, which is a part of our systems now. A role of the cartoonist is not to be debated. A role of the cartoonist is to critique. It's not to make a Valentine's Day card, right? Which is often the thing now. Why can't cartoonists draw something cute? I mean, if they were drawing cute, they wouldn't be there in the
That's
newspaper.
Disney's job.
Right? They would ring greeting cards for you. So, I mean, the debate has gone to a sense of bizarre. I think it was a great thing that NCRT introducing cartoons into the school book.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we get it? I mean, I got my first prize in cartooning when I was in school, because one newspaper had started a cartooning competition. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see a Shankar's cartoon or a Unni's cartoon or a Vijayan's cartoon in the school book, to realize that the history of cartooning through the political milestones. But when it goes out of the system like that, it's probably because our own ways of looking at humor or dealing with humor have gone out of the system long back. And I think the media has a big role to play in it. The space for a political cartoon has diminished out of the newspaper. The last man standing would be Unni, who was there with me in this panel last year. He's come down to a size of a piece which is lesser than a change pocket in your jeans. I'm talking about the school time that I grew up. We used to have a cartoon as a lead story once a week, as an editorial on the edit page. That doesn't happen anymore, right? It's our own engagement with humor that has completely got diminished. And we cannot blame the people. The people are now living in a time where they don't know that they have the freedom to laugh.
Since we were talking about Facebook earlier, I was wondering if you'd say that technological forms are also making it possible to express solidarity in different ways. Say, look at Arijit's work again. There were so many people who reposted that particular work, because of which Facebook had to allow it, and it was published again. So do you see that as a stray instance, or do you see technology as this thing which can actually be really
Well, when technology came, I thought it was a great leveler and equalizer. I don't want people to repost and 100,000 more posts, and then it becomes a TRP issue for Facebook and say, oh, okay, this post is doing well, let's put it back. I mean, if that's the intention, then probably it's not really winning freedom of expression. Then it's not a freedom of democracy. I mean, an expression of democracy. It's pure currency.
Yeah.
And if that's what we're leading to, then I'm not so sure. I really want that post back.
But what I was saying is, that's why I was talking about strategy. I'm saying that if you're in times where you're under pressure, where there's confusion, where you're giving into a lot of things because, being very generous and saying that everybody else is giving into stuff because of various pressures, they don't know how to balance the pressures out, then for me it's why not? For me, even if it's Facebook's TRP that is making them put it back, There are a bunch of people who are posting who are saying, I will not let you censor this. And that is going through clearly. For me, the bigger concern is that even on Facebook, there are communities. What we have done is we have stopped talking across. When you're talking dialogue or debate or discourse, that has stopped. So you and I and X other people will talk, and then there's a whole bunch of other people there who will talk, but there is no. How do you have freedom when you will not listen to each other? Or you won't listen, I'm saying don't agree. But if you won't listen to each other, if you won't say, oh, that's something for me to go back and reflect upon, right? If you want, if your answers are so well constrained within a circle, and that is the only truth, and that is the only truth you will have, then of course you will lose freedom. And something is happening in the way the world is functioning, where everybody has decided their truth, and then it's being played out in different ways. You're playing it out by censoring textbooks, you're playing it out by, you're playing it out by allowing this piece and not that piece. You're playing it out constantly, but what you're playing out is a mindset that no longer has respect for freedom and understands what it is. Freedom is not the freedom to buy. But you're living in a time where, I mean, it's what we were chatting about also. Like for me, one big, again, because I was in the US for so long, one of the first things I thought about there is a difference between freedom and license. License means I can do what the hell I want to. I don't have to care about anybody else. Freedom is not about that. Freedom is about responsibility. Freedom is about some kind of awareness of the world around you. Freedom does not, no, you cannot be free alone. And I think many people have written well about this. I can't say it so well, right? And I think there lies a lot of the rub. I mean, even on Facebook, when do we start talking? When do we not dismiss somebody? And honestly, one of the things that concerns me is that even people like us who think we are progressive or think that we stand for freedom, we do the same dismissal. Yeah. We refuse to get into conversation with other people. We refuse to have difference. Yeah. Then what freedom are you standing for?
I wanted to bring up exactly this. I've often heard people say that they're reluctant to express a different shade of opinion because they think that liberals will call them right-wing, just because they happen to express something which is like, so one of the criticisms that comes is, hey, you can say something about Hindu right-wing, but you cannot say something about Muslim right-wing. That's one of the things that people often talk about. Okay, so I don't know how valid or not that criticism is, but that's something to think about. Then, like for example, women's entry being restricted to the Haji Ali Dargah now. You see a lot less about it than women's entry being restricted to Sabrimala. That's one example.
Or that temple in
Shani Shingnapur. The other thing is, I'm thinking of the Bangalore Literature Festival when Vikram Sampath had to step off the organizing committee because he made certain comments that certain writers did not like, and they said, if he's part of it, then we will not be part of it. So I'm wondering if, like there are liberal fascists as well who will not allow shades of opinion to be expressed beyond a certain framework. I mean, this is taking off from what you just said. Are we allowing dialogue of all kinds, or are we saying, dialogue is permissible only within this boundary?
So I think you have to be clear what you're against. Are you against fascism? Right? Are you against, or are you saying my group of people are liberals and I don't talk to communists, and communists don't talk to right-wing Hindu people, and right-wing Hindu people don't talk to right-wing? What are you standing for? Because if you are standing against what you're calling fascism, then you must talk to everybody against it. And I do think that, see, I'll tell you about the right wing. They don't want democracy. Right wing anywhere in the world. Democracy power nahi hai. You have to listen to people. You have to debate with them. You can't do what you want. Yeah. I mean, come on, yaar, it's a pain in the ass. Right? So the right wing has not been, actually the right wing has never been dishonest. They have said we don't want democracy. I will tell you what to do. You must do what I want to do. Right? And you have no rights. And I'll keep you happy in these few ways. And that's it. So actually the double talk doesn't happen there. I'm not standing up for the right wing. I'm actually saying,
yeah, I get it.
In a sense, the double talk does happen with us, which is why they've got us. Because anything we say, they can say that is pseudo-secularism.
Yes.
Imagine a word like pseudo-secular in a country like India based on this amazing concept of secular, which is not used anywhere else in the world, becomes a weapon to hit you with.
And prostitute.
And just logically, how do you survive in India if you cannot survive with difference? It is the one country that if you cannot survive with difference, we'll just kill each other. Ho gaya. Right? But we don't have those. We fall into the lap, and part of what you guys were saying about being reactive earlier, right? When you allow the terms of debate to be run like this, because you played into their hands, because you have not had your own integrity to what you're standing for, then you're asking for situations like this. So if you're asking me, are they liberal fascists? I would say yes, they are. Are you asking me if they're fascists in any community? I would say yes, they are. If you're not open to listening to somebody else, if you're not open to dialogue and debate, if you're not open to discourse,
Then you're part of the game.
then you're part of the game. And you have to decide, right? And make your mistakes, but decide. And for me, the saddest part is when all this bloody talk, sorry, my language, but all this talk about this
Don't
great
censor your
nation-
language. It's a censorship panel.
but all this talk about this great culture we have and all of this stuff where you want to like have plastic surgery in God knows what era, right? The greatness of our culture lay in the fact that one of the greatnesses in so many religions is we had public debates. You could take the ideas of the time, the philosophical ideas of the time, the religious ideas of the time, you could sit in public, you could debate, and you had people listening to you who were being provoked by your debate and went home and thought about it. Right? And if you really want to celebrate Indian culture, celebrate that.
And I agree with you.
You
It's
know?
not only one party. It's I think across party lines.
Yeah.
And this has actually happened across party lines. There has been a certain censorship. There has been a certain sense of ban. There has been a soft ban within across party lines. I mean, whether it's the left, whether it's the right, whether it's the center, whether it's the center right or the center left, the fact remains we have come to this situation not out of isolation in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
We have it's a journey we have evolved ourselves to, and it's not a healthy journey.
It's a very unhealthy journey.
It's a dangerous journey. It's a journey we have internalized now.
There is something rotten in the state of Denmark.
And in the state of India and Bangladesh and Pakistan and everywhere. I'm saying that because she mentioned Pakistan briefly earlier. Can we
You
also?
mentioned.
Yeah, both of you mentioned. Can we also talk about a bit about bloggers in Bangladesh, about Sabine who got murdered in Karachi because she was hosting a discussion on Balochistan. And though we talked a lot about the environment that's brewing in our country, do you also see this as some kind of zeitgeist which is happening all over the world because certain kinds of forces are gaining power?
Well, I mean, I think it's the state that is complicit in supporting these non-state actors. So these non-state actors are basically B-grade state actors, right? So, whether it's Sabine who gets killed or the Iranian woman cartoonist who's been in jail, whether it's Jafar Panahi who's been in jail forever, whether Makmal Baf who cannot meet his mother in Iran, so he calls her to Kerala, and whether it's the Syrian cartoonists or whether it's Charlie Hebdo, the fact remains, it's not something that's happening in isolation.
Yeah.
It's something, there's a certain tacit support behind of a greater power, which is beyond the realm of a drawing board or a dance floor or a concert or a ghazal or a Bollywood number.
So I have a specific, for me, this example of exactly what you're saying, right? Of how the state is complicit and often shamelessly complicit is when Gujarat happened in 2002. Habib Tanveer at that time was very vocal, right? And he had been invited by the Congress government in Digvijay Singh in Madhya Pradesh to do a tour of plays in Madhya Pradesh. He was doing two plays. He was doing Ponga Pandit and I can't remember the other play. Jamadar, this is Ponga Pandit, and there was another play that he was also doing. I think Jis Lohar, maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember. And he was traveling. And of course, what often happens with the banning or the social censorship is you actually don't know. You've been given order, censor karo. Jaake maro, tod phod kar do. And you do, right? In fact, Janam has a beautiful play about this. If you've not seen it, you must see it. It's a great play about how
What's
this
it called?
Mera Dil Mange More Guruji. Yeah, it's a really good play. So Habib Saab was performing, and there were threats from some right-wing group, right, who didn't even know Habib Tanveer. They were shouting there, they knew him as Tanveer Ahmad. So they were saying Tanveer Ahmad, hi, hi, whatever. They were going after his car, etc. Okay. He goes to perform, there's a full audience. Just before the play starts, the police walk in and they clear out the audience. Because there is a law in India that if you fear public unrest, you can clear out the space. So, auditorium after auditorium after auditorium after auditorium in a play that has been commissioned, like a tour that has been commissioned by the government. The police walk in and clear the audience. Habib Saab, being what he was, he said, I will perform everywhere. He performed. He said, I will do the play. Koi dekhe ya na dekhe. It wasn't that the audience police told if you don't want to see it, leave. It wasn't that the police said, I will protect your right to perform and I will stop, I will make sure that if you don't like it, you can have a debate afterwards about it, but you may not attack the performance. They came and they cleared out every single one. What are we talking about? Because Habib Saab that way is amazing. No, because he did the tour. He said, "Main karunga. I will not stop. You may not stop me." And there's, I mean, that's not even like aisa complicity. It is in your face.
Out in the open, yeah.
Yeah, it's in your face. It is on video. And nobody said anything.
Yeah, that, I mean, apart from the complicity of the artist, that also makes you think of complicity of performance venues quite clearly. I mean, I remember, just a few months ago, the Times Literature Festival was being, I mean, I don't know if it's okay to talk about other lit fests here, but we're talking what's this censorship is the issue.
Censorship.
Yeah, so Times Lit Fest was happening at Mehboob Studios, and there was Salima Hashmi, Ali Sethi, Moni Mohsin. The organizers were very afraid that the Shiv Sena would come and do something because these Pakistani folks are here, so they did not announce their events. They did not even put them up on many of the
But I have a
boards that
question.
were
Is
there.
that strategy or is that censorship?
I don't. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
because
because
you
when
did
I
bring
was
that up
when I was at
earlier.
MIT, I remember Salman Rushdie, the fatwa had been put on him, and I remember that there was a talk at MIT which was announced, and actually it was going to be a talk by Salman Rushdie, but nobody was told. And what they did is everybody was in the hall, right? And this is the MIT establishment, by the way, who said we have to stand for his right to speak, not that his books are good or bad. And they, as soon as everybody was in, they locked all the doors, right? And they brought Salman Rushdie in. I don't know if that's strategy or censorship,
What do you think?
because there's a situation there. I mean,
I don't think there's a black and white to it. I mean,
Yeah.
in a sense. I mean, of course, there's a little bit of a element of strategy there, and but the fact remains, for the benefit of that audience, they did protect his right to speak.
and it's also a stand, no?
Yeah.
You're taking a risk.
Shahid
You are
Alam
taking a
spoke about
risk.
something similar when he was in Bombay recently, when he was talking about how it's really difficult to show a lot of art in Bangladesh because of the heavy censorship from the government there. And he talked, I don't remember the exact details, but he talked about something similar where, some political figure was in a particular room and then that thing started where, this person couldn't escape it at all.
But Chintan, we are a country of 1.2, 1.3 billion people. If you actually see how, let's talk about the physical practicality of censorship, how it plays out on the ground, right? In my experience, 4 people come and threaten you. Really. When I was working in Prithvi, you had this group write to us saying you are showing Nadira Babbar's play on MF Hussain. MF Hussain is a traitor to the country. We will not let you do the play. Right? At that time, Sanjana said, nothing doing. I have a censor certificate. I have followed all state laws. We'll talk about whether there should be censor certificate separately. But right now, the laws of the country have been followed. We have got a censor certificate. We have a right to do this play. So she went to the police commissioner and said, you have to protect it. First she went to the police. The police said, "Arey yaar, kuch elections are rahe, just delayed by 2 or 3 days, whatever." She said no. She said that would be like giving in. You have to protect. And she kept at it. Finally got to the police commissioner. The police commissioner said she is right. Right? So that it was amazing, okay? Because we had Nadira Babbar's play happening in Prithvi. It was houseful, right? And what did we do? We called all the theatre walas. They said they are attacking a play. All of you come and stand here. 200 of you be here outside. Just be there. We are not asking you to come with dandas, but be there. Show the physical, be there.
We are with you.
Yeah, and no, not only there, please, your bodies. All I'm saying is, if you're there ready, knowing that there can be something like this, your body standing there, right? There were 18 policemen, they all saw the play that day, so we had policemen see a play which we're very happy about, okay? But the point remains is that if you stand by it, especially if you're a person with power in society, and what upsets, and so it is Sanjana Kapoor going to the police commissioner, okay? She has access. What I get upset about is the people who have power. The people who have access refuse to take a stand. And if you have access and you have power and you can demand, and you will not take the stand because you're afraid of losing, I don't know, 1 crore when you make 100 crores, like Amitabh Bachchan's King Lear, when, PVR Cinema, there was a King Lear premiere, Amitabh had said something about Bombay and UP, Shiv Sena or I can't remember, somebody got offended. 4 guys came on motorbikes, broke the ticket window, they pulled the premiere. It's PVR and Amitabh Bachchan, why would you pull a premiere? So if they pull the premiere, then your chota mota guy will pull. He will run. Unless,
It's easier. It just gets easiher to express
Absolutely.
your
absolutely.
unhappiness,
Yeah.
the state of hurt. That's become quite a entrenched, what's the modus operandi to it. you
It's
know?
even become common sense, which is the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, what you said also reminded me of the recent incident where Sudhindra Kulkarni said that he'd go ahead with that
I loved
particular
him. I
book
loved,
launch.
But I loved him. I loved that he stood with that tar on his face, and he refused to wash it off. And that, so it has nothing to do with whether I agree with Sudhindra Kulkarni or not. But the fact that when he got his face blackened, he went on bloody public television and insisted on giving interviews. And that was the right thing to do. It is, you will not cow me.
And the books also got sold.
Yes, because that was smart, right?
And I was, the Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan was here recently, and he said that, nobody stood up when the author of the book came into the room, but when Sudhindra Kulkarni appeared in Karachi in that room, everybody stood up because they were like, oh, it gave an opportunity for Pakistanis to talk about how, even India is so screwed up. So that happened too. But I really like that point that you say about strategizing. Maybe we should talk a little bit more about that. Do you have any ideas?
He is the
About
best
that.
person. He works with.
We should also get
I'm a
Geeta in on that
strategist.
because she's
I'm a
working on that.
strategist, yeah.
Come on.
So, what do you want me to talk about? How to disrupt?
Yes, humor, cartoon, graphic novels,
I told
strategy.
you, there's a weekend plan to it. I always work across a weekend plan, yeah. My biggest problem is that not enough number of cartoonists have actually stood up. We have this thing where the cartoon is getting out of the space. There is not enough space in the print media, or even if there is, it's a very safe space right now where everything is. There are a lot of journalism awards that happen. None of them have an award for the best design or the best cartoonist or the best infographist because the visual medium has completely gone out of the system. So, and if that goes out of the system, what are we talking about? We are talking about a visual culture which we want to create through the page or through the book or through our instruments of information. But at the same time, we are, hoodwinking a certain way. Things are projected. So if my thing is, does India need a Charlie Hebdo? Yes, it does. It does really need a very a strong cartooning community coming together, and that is a problem, and that right now is a problem.
But strategy.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you something
Yeah.
more specific. So,
I think you evolve strategy for every situation. I don't think you can have a standard strategy.
Yeah, but why should it be strategic?
But you're in those times.
That's again
no?
reactionary, right?
Yes and no. You're in those times, and you have to decide whether it is more important for you to be moralistic or to get that voice heard. I think one of the things that I found myself
I would
moving.
like to think we're working in a democratic space where we would like to get the voice heard. Even
Correct.
if we agree or disagree
And
with
therefore,
it,
and
right?
because you know the context of the situation you're in, sometimes you use strategy
But
because the voice
context
is
will
important.
keep changing, and if you keep
Correct.
doing it accordingly, then there's no end to it. Then it's only you're doing further reactions and further reactions.
I'm not sure strategy is a reaction. For instance, in Junoon we curate, right? So if I'm going to curate somebody who other people are going to view as problematic, right? So I'll give you a simple example. When I'm doing my announcement, right? I know what the artist is going to talk about. I've had a conversation with the artist, right? I believe it should be talked about. It may not, by the way, be we may not be seeing eye to eye on things. It's not, I don't have to agree with what they're saying. But I believe it needs to be said and shared, right? When I send my mailer out, knowing today's context, I will send the mailer out in a way that people come. I will do that. That is strategy. I will send it in a way that people come. I will make it interesting as much as I understand what will make somebody come. Let them come and let the problem happen in the room. Let it happen in the room. And let me set it up in a way where I'm asking people to ask the questions. I'm asking them to be difficult, but I'm saying you have to talk. You have to discourse and you have to debate. It doesn't happen with all our Mumbai local sessions. It happens once in a while because it's not as if every artist is that politically incisive or thoughtful. But it does happen. It's not that it hasn't happened, and it's actually been quite brilliant when it happens. But if I decided to stand on the political platform at that point, two things would happen. One is the people who already agree will come, the other people will not come. Right? And the way we are set up in Mumbai local is I really want curious public to come. One of the things you don't want to do is not the people who already access the arts, access them. We want the people who are
That's not
interested.
really to do with freedom
But that
of
is strategy,
censorship.
no?
That is strategy for the organization of the performance.
No,
That's
but
not-
it's a
that has nothing to do with, that's not much to do with freedom of expression in that sense.
It is to do with your,
It is to do with the institution, it is to do with the performance, it is to do with the crowd, it is to do with
but it depends on what you see censorship as. I see often us are practicing our own censorship. This is not my thoughts, therefore I will not engage. What is that? Right? For me, really one of the bigger concerns really today is not only the social censorship but the self-censorship. That you double think yourself, that you will not reach out for other ideas. If more and more of us would do that, then perhaps it would not be so easy for everybody to censor us. You don't have enough people backing you. You don't have enough people saying cartoons must be there.
that. I agree.
Yeah.
That I agree, but I don't know. I am not so sure if that's a strategy of a communication of getting people to the performance, or it's for the sake of the freedom of expression. That's not something I'm very sure of at this point.
How would you do it?
I mean, there's no black and white to it. There's one thing that I'm calling people for performance. That this is a great performance, or this is what this performance talks about. But it's not that every time I'm standing with a flag of freedom of expression, because every piece need not be about that.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm thinking about your collaboration with Freedom Jatha, the Palestine-India collaboration that happened, and you got Faisal to talk. I'm bringing that up because, again, this theme of, do you stand up only for your freedom or the freedom of your people and your artist community, or do you also think of artists elsewhere in the world? So this whole thing was also about, having a platform where Palestinians can talk about their
So I'll
issues.
tell you, I have a slightly different take on it. I think we all find it much easier to stand up for freedom of people elsewhere in the world than for people in our own country. So I don't know how many of us are standing up for the Kabir Kala Manch.
Correct, exactly.
It's much easier to stand up for the Palestinians because
you
we don't have to face it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I'm not saying they should not be here. There is a lot to learn. The freedom there in Palestine, what they stand for, is amazing. It's wonderful. Right? But what is the Kabir Kala Manch going through right now, and why? Right? And what nonsense that they are being branded as Naxalites. Such an easy term, no? I don't like you, you're a Naxalite.
Or anti-national.
Yeah, anti-national. Right? But come on. And for me, it's so interesting because the attacks on Dalits today are, I don't know, it's a transition time. It's really interesting that the one voice the one large community voice which seems to be so unstabling or destabilizing is the Dalit voice. And whether it's, or the low caste voice, which may be the Kabir Kala Manch, or it may be what is happening with Rohit Vemula, his death at the university or whatever, I'm hoping that becomes a disruptive voice. Because I wonder if that horrible history will actually allow for a non-complete co-optation by the market and allow some disruption, because I don't know where else it would come from.
Would you say it slightly has to do with the media not covering that voice enough, because that voice is maybe not considered cool enough or not enough?
But see what's happened is, FTI.
It doesn't make it to literature
नहीं, वो बात
festivals
नहीं है
too.
ना. That's okay. That FTII happened, right? They couldn't keep it out of media and Facebook.
Huh.
Right, I met some of these FTI kids. He was talking about how he has learned politics through the strike protests. Right? Then this Rohit Vemula thing has happened, and colleges are very dangerous things. They can go this way or that way. and this Rohit Vemula thing has happened, and there's been a
It was last night's JNU protest that happened.
right? So there's something. People, human beings are strange, you feel that. Something is happening. I'm not sure what it is. And I hope
No, I
they're
think
gonna
I
fix
have a
it.
lot of hope in the college campus,
Yeah.
because it's really evolved as the youngest Indian startup in terms of freedom of expression. It's actually, if there's a Make in India startup, then the college campus is.
And
The
they-
Jadavpur,
Yeah.
the beginning of the Jadavpur for the last year, then FTII, and then Hyderabad University, JNU, all of that. I think there's a huge
Something.
churning that's happening
yeah.
there. And that generation, if that's not co-opted or bought over, has this chance of creating that space within the media, within the system, within the discourse, with the technology on their side, is something that we probably missed out on.
Yeah. And they also know a technology better that
Absolutely.
the older generation does not know. So they
Absolutely.
actually have something over us. They know how to get
Hey,
past
I'm
it.
younger generation,
How old are you?
30.
Yeah, you've been
Sort
there
of,
for the
cusp.
last 5 years now.
Okay, Khorshid is signaling that we have to make time for audience questions
Oh,
now.
please.
And so, who'd like to ask a question? Yeah,
Hi Chintan, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Sorry, my name is Priyanka. I drive communications for a media company here. This is more a reaction as opposed to a question, and I'll keep it short. So far as, and this is largely in reaction to what Vishwajyoti said earlier. And while he was saying, the only thing you can ban in this country is the arts. Well, GDP numbers can also be banned or, well, hidden, let's just put it that way. And there are enormous number of medical advances that we make, and we do not disclose it because,
hit
well,
the
there is
market,
money
yeah.
to be made in that.
Yeah.
And, well, talking about money, there are people who, well, don't talk about it. So, all said and done.
In fact, research is held back. Medical
Of
research is
course.
held back because it might hurt the market, even if it's going to take medicine further.
Absolutely, and having worked in the whole PR ecosystem for a while now, I can say everything is strategy. There is no such thing as a spontaneous reaction, and so far as Facebook is concerned, everything is paid. So it all boils down to money, right? So why the hell are we, again, pardon my language, but why the hell are we talking about art, censorship, allowing it when we can just buy it out?
Because you can't.
There's enough money, trust you me. You just have to manipulate a few people and it's possible.
See, the problem in the history of the world is that there are a few people who just don't like to be bought out, and they create a lot of trouble.
Agreed.
And many of them tend to come from intellectual or artistic spaces.
Sure.
And there's a certain economic agenda too, whether a research is banned or whether a national survey is fudged. There's a certain economic agenda. It might not be necessarily.
And there is a
political
power agenda or
yeah,
political
of course,
agenda to
yeah.
ban art, right?
Yeah.
So there is an agenda
but
for
there's a
everything.
huge socio-political agenda for art. Right? You don't want people to streamline into thinking in one certain way, which you might think is dangerous.
Yes, because eventually it affects making money for a particular pocket, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, if there's a party that thinks that probably a secularist dialogue is not something the country needs, it's not a market-driven thought. It's a social-driven thought. There's a certain
disagree.
capitalism of ideas that we would like to impose a certain hegemony of ideas on you, and this is what we would like you to think.
It's not necessarily money, it is power.
It's a power.
Yeah, money is one one expression of power. There can be other expressions of power as well.
Agreed.
Khorshid, this is the last panel, right? So we have time till 10, right?
Happy Jan, I suppose.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hi.
Hi.
So one of the stated reasons for censorship is that it may offend, quote unquote, offend a few people. So firstly, how true is that? Is it like, does it really offend people? Do they really react, or is it just the hooligans who do it and then they give an excuse for it? Second, one of the things that I see missing in this censorship debate is building a culture amongst the viewers or the listeners of that art to not react to something which is different. And that just goes back to our fundamental educational, probably, practices. So if I come from a mindset where I react to things which are different from what I believe, maybe we require censorship until this is fixed as well. I don't know. What are thoughts? What are your
Your
thoughts
second
about?
point is something we broadly talked about. That there's a certain amount of television or media or human interest or the thrill in getting that footage, in getting that fact that this has happened. But the problem is that many times from the practitioner's point of view, the practitioner is also complicit because he wants that controversy. that happens. And it's a very sad and a cynical thing, and it's shameful for me as a practitioner for me to say it, but I've seen many instances like that. I know a filmmaker who had this film, and it became a big thing. All the censors have held it up, and I finally met him and I said, "Kya hua tha?" He said, "No, censor, no." I said, "What happened?" I wanted to know what really happened. And finally he said, "Look, I wanted controversy, I got it." So, is that also our intention? I'm not saying that's the majority of the practitioners, but the fact remains that is also not really helping the debate.
Is this Anupam Kher, by the way?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So,
It's a documentary film.
Arvind, the number of things, right? One
Geeta
is,
wants to ask.
just if
sorry.
I can
Yeah,
respond
yeah.
to that. One is the way censorship works, it's not the people. It's usually a few people. Those few people very rarely have watched the piece of art. So it's not as if, I wish they would watch the piece of art and then hate it and break the stage. At least dekha hai to. They have not seen it. Right? They have heard about it. When Wendy Donegan's book was not read, it was heard about.
And
Correct?
pulped.
So right. Secondly, in a democracy, if you continue to distrust the people, you're asking for trouble. Where is the spirit of democracy? It's supposed to be something that is of the people, by the people, for the people. Right? So then I agree with you on the education point. There has to be an education not just in schools, in larger sense of a
social dialogue.
a social education where we have to be open up to many more things. But we cannot say that till the people are ready, we will give them only so much. That is not a democratic concept. Then we have to decide we don't want a democracy. Part of the reason you even have a debate like this here is because we believe that because we have a democracy, we have the right to freedom of whatever. Right?
Okay, Khurshid says that we
I
have
think,
no time for anything at all.
Geeta
She's saying
wanted
that
a-
we can't talk further because we have to stop. Do we
One
have
comment?
2 minutes?
One comment.
2 comments?
Yeah.
I love you. What a negotiator you are.
Okay, Geeta and...
Sir.
Okay.
Well, absolutely. Speaking about thinking and speaking about there's lots of perspective. There's a difference between reasoning, assumption, skepticism, सब कुछ. लेकिन एक बात समझना चाहिए कि हम लोग सिर्फ बातें करते हैं और we are not action takers. We are the most laziest people. फलाने के साथ कुछ भी हो रहा है, जब तक हमारे साथ हमारे बहू बेटियों के साथ नहीं होगा या हमारे पे अत्याचार नहीं होगा, हम पे तोड़फोड़ नहीं होगी, हमारे एडिटोरियल्स को जलाया नहीं जाएगा, कुर्सियां तोड़ी नहीं जाएगी. एक बात को समझना चाहिए कि बिल्कुल घुटन सा माहौल है कि कुछ भी करने के लिए हमारा जी नहीं चाहता है. Don't call it suppression or oppression. It's absolute suppression. It's absolute oppression. It's taking away rights of an individual. It's जो कोई 6 laws है fraternity. I mean, do you believe that 60 years, do you feel that India was sleeping or every individual is sleeping? जो rules constitution में बनाए गए, आज हम पे थोपे जा रहे हैं और आज कोई भी उपयोग में नहीं आ रहा है. What the hell? Amit, you can't, एक आदमी जो जेल में जाके, प्रिजन में जाके लोकमान्य तिलक हुए, चाहे महात्मा गांधी हुए, आज उसको कहा जा रहा है कि हम आपका नोट में से जहां पर भी सोनिया गांधी, जहां पर भी इंदिरा गांधी जी ने काम किया है, उसको माइन्यूट किया जा रहा है. और एक गवर्नमेंट जो एक सप्ताह एक फ्रस्ट्रेटेड पार्टी आई है, वो ये आरोप लगाती है कि हम आपके रिजर्व बैंक में से वो फेसेस हटाएंगे जहां पर भी इंदिरा जी ने काम किया, जहां पर राहुल गांधी काम करेगा. एक आदमी को इतना गिरा.
I'm sorry, I do want to listen to you, but I do want to make space for Geeta because it shouldn't be like, a man's voice is heard and a woman's voice is not heard. So can you just wrap up quickly? I do value your voice, but she has to speak.
I'm just wrapping it because let her be the ultimate voice because she's more renowned and she's more. But
It's not about that.
Let me just have a point here. अगर आप मेरी बात समझ गए होंगे, तो there is only build-up of stress and more stress. What's happening behind the locked doors is that you're just showing, pretending. There's no happiness, there's no peace of minds, and believe me, the situation here is एक आदमी खड़ा था जिसने हम, because today we are on this earth, we in India, हम लोग freedom से घूम रहे, एक दो आदमी कुछ freedom fighters कुछ करके गए हमारे, let's believe that, and we should not, we have no right to put families down and put individuals down. एक आदमी खड़ा होता है तो उसके पीछे this competition and jealousy कि ये आदमी को कुर्सी, ये आदमी फलाना सुनील दत्त बनना चाह रहा है या इंदिरा गांधी बनना चाह रहा है, राहुल गांधी
जी मैं आपके जज्बातों की इज्जत करता हूँ लेकिन मुझे इनकी बात भी सुननी है. तो बहुत शुक्रिया आपने जो बोला उसके लिए.
I would have made it a question, but since we have to end here, I have a couple of suggestions, and you must allow me to do it, not only because I'm daughtery and old, but also because I think if we don't use words precisely, then we have exciting discussion, but sometimes we get lost. So one is that when you're talking about censorship, generally the word by convention is used to talk about an authority that censors. So we, in a way, have to look perhaps for a different way of explaining what is happening. Now, Vishwajyoti spoke about the emergency, and that's the difference between the emergency and today. It's not a difference of political party, it's the difference between the state, the legal, the government of the day taking away, censoring. That is censorship. When they ban a book, that is censorship. But 5 people saying, you cannot have this theatre production, or you cannot show this film, or we are hurt by this cartoon, that is not what we usually think of as censorship. Okay? So we have to think of a new word for it. For a while we used the ineffective phrase mob censorship. And really, it's unless the government turns around and says, okay, now we'll do state censorship because mob has demanded it, then it's censorship.
Embedded emergency.
It's, sorry?
It's an
But
embedded
Geeta,
emergency.
there have been terms like
Yeah,
social
yeah.
You know,
censorship
I mean,
and
even Congress
self-censorship.
in the last 1 week has said this reminds us of emergency.
Yeah.
Now, that's the biggest contrarian
Right,
statement
right.
ever.
That's the other point I wanted to make.
But there
that
is in parlance.
Hi.
Social
Yeah.
censorship
Can we,
and self-censorship.
do you mind
Maybe
if we...
you should
Actually-
use the word ideology and not party and so on.
Okay,
We
2
should talk
minutes?
about
Thank
that.
you. Oh, she's given us 2 minutes. You can talk now.
No, I just want to quickly react
Yeah.
because I'm saying I don't think it's me using that word. I think there has been in parlance for at least a decade. About and there's been a lot of concern, and GP Deshpande was one of the leaders in this kind of thinking about the fact that censorship no longer is actually a state subject. It has become a social subject, and it has become and that the social censorship being allowed by the state has led to a huge amount of self-censorship. So one of the difficulties of dealing with censorship today. Who do you address, and where do you demand your rights? It's something that I don't think, I don't think this is something I'm introducing today. I think this has been a big concern, especially in the art space. Wendy Donegan's book was not banned by the state. The publisher pulled it under threat. Whatever the threat is, I'm saying the threat is 2 people nowadays. The publisher chooses to pull it. There's market forces at work, whatever you want to call it. But the point is you're censoring yourself. It's such a wonderful situation where you no longer need to be censored because you're censoring yourself. You know, and that's our enemy today in a sense. I mean, that's the danger. And he talked about artists censoring themselves. He talked about practitioners being complicit in this kind of whatever the reasons are. And it's really complex and difficult. And then what do you do as an individual? What is your stance? Who do you fight? And what stance do you take in your daily practice with the arts?
We have to stop this right now. But thank you everyone for coming and for staying. And I think the beer and wine did us good.